The bank manager fired a single dad over $9. She never expected him to withdraw $86 million, and the bank lobby fell silent the moment the security alarm chimed. A tired single father stood at the customer service desk, clutching a faded wallet and a deposit slip, his little daughter waiting quietly beside him with a worn-out teddy bear. $9. That was all that separated his account from a required minimum balance. Instead of receiving understanding, he was handed a termination letter and publicly humiliated by the bank manager, who declared that someone who couldn't manage $9 had no business working in a financial institution. Every customer turned to stare as the father lowered his eyes, trying to hide the pain from his daughter. What no one in that building knew was that, before sunset, the same man would authorize the withdrawal of $86 million, a decision that would shake the entire bank and destroy the career of the woman who believed money defined a person's worth. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is stronger than pride and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to Heartfelt Chronicles for more emotional stories that remind us humanity always matters more than wealth. The man's name was Daniel Carter, a 38-year-old widowed father who had spent the last 6 years raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, alone. Before life changed forever, Daniel had been an investment strategist at one of the country's most respected financial firms. He earned more money than he ever imagined possible, traveled across continents, and advised billionaire families on protecting their fortunes. Then tragedy arrived without warning. His wife lost her life after a sudden illness, leaving Daniel with a grieving little girl who needed a father far more than the corporate world needed another executive. He walked away from his high-paying career, sold his luxury apartment, and disappeared from the financial spotlight. Few people understood why someone with such extraordinary talent would choose an ordinary life. But Daniel never regretted placing his daughter before his ambition. Years passed quietly. Daniel accepted a modest job as an assistant in a neighborhood branch of the same banking group, where many of his former corporate clients still kept their fortunes. He never revealed his past because he wanted to be judged for who he had become rather than what he once owned. Every paycheck barely covered rent, groceries, school supplies, and medical bills. By the end of each month, there was almost nothing left. Still, Lily never went to bed without hearing a bedtime story, and Daniel never complained about how difficult life had become. The week everything changed began with bad news. Lily caught a severe infection that required expensive medications not fully covered by insurance. Daniel emptied nearly every dollar from his checking account to pay the pharmacy before rushing to work the next morning. He arrived exhausted after spending the entire night by his daughter's bedside. His account balance slipped below the required minimum by exactly $9. He intended to deposit money during his lunch break, but someone else had already noticed. The branch manager, Victoria Hayes, believed discipline mattered more than compassion. She was ambitious, polished, and obsessed with numbers. To her, employees represented the image of the bank, and anyone struggling financially reflected poorly on management. During a routine internal review, she discovered Daniel's account balance. Instead of asking if something had happened, she assumed irresponsibility. She summoned him into the lobby rather than her office, making sure employees and customers witnessed what followed. Without listening to his explanation, she announced that the bank expected higher standards from its staff and terminated his employment immediately. She even remarked that if someone couldn't keep $9 in their account, they certainly couldn't be trusted around millions. Daniel accepted the dismissal without anger. He simply packed the few belongings from his desk, placed the family photograph carefully inside a cardboard box, thanked the co-workers who had quietly shown him kindness over the years, and walked toward the exit. Lily, who had been waiting after school, noticed tears forming in her father's eyes. She reached for his hand without asking questions, because children often understand pain without hearing a single word. As Daniel stepped outside, his phone rang. The call came from Jonathan Reeves, chairman of Reeves Global Holdings, one of the wealthiest private investment groups in the country. Years earlier, Daniel had personally helped Jonathan save his family business from financial collapse through an investment strategy that eventually created billions in value. Jonathan had never forgotten that loyalty. Learning Daniel had left corporate finance, he quietly continued asking for his advice on rare occasions. This time the call carried unusual urgency. Jonathan explained that the company planned to move $86 million from its operating accounts to another financial institution. After repeated complaints about poor customer treatment at their current bank, since Daniel had always managed their financial transitions with integrity, Jonathan wanted him to personally supervise the withdrawal and recommend the new banking partner. Daniel hesitated. He no longer worked in high finance. He no longer wore expensive suits, but integrity never disappears with a job title. He agreed to help. The following morning, Daniel returned to the same branch where he had been humiliated less than 24 hours earlier. This time he wore the same simple clothes, carried the same worn leather folder, and calmly requested a meeting regarding a corporate withdrawal. Victoria recognized him immediately. Assuming he had returned to beg for another chance, she dismissed him without even reading the authorization documents. Only when senior corporate representatives entered behind Daniel, carrying legal files, did confusion spread across her face. Within minutes, regional executives rushed into the branch after confirming the authenticity of the request. The documents authorized the immediate withdrawal of $86 million belonging to Reeves Global Holdings. Daniel had been officially designated as financial advisor overseeing the transaction. Silence filled the room. Employees who had watched Daniel lose his job the previous day now watched executives greet him with respect, usually reserved for industry legends. Victoria's confident expression disappeared. She finally realized she had never bothered to learn who Daniel really was. News of the withdrawal spread rapidly through corporate headquarters. The loss of such a massive client threatened quarterly performance, investor confidence, and the bank's reputation. Internal investigators quickly reviewed recent customer complaints. They uncovered a pattern of arrogance, public humiliation, and poor leadership inside the branch. Multiple employees admitted they had remained silent because they feared losing their jobs. The investigation lasted only a few days. Victoria's employment ended exactly where Daniel's had. The difference was that no one applauded her removal, and no one blamed Daniel. Her own choices had built the path to that moment. When reporters later learned why Reeves Global Holdings had transferred its funds elsewhere, public reaction was immediate. The story wasn't about $86 million. It was about $9. Millions of people discussed how quickly society judges struggling parents without understanding the sacrifices hidden behind their hardships. Several former clients contacted Daniel after hearing the story. They offered consulting opportunities worth far more than he had earned before. Yet, Daniel accepted only enough work to provide stability for Lily. He had already learned that true wealth wasn't measured by numbers inside a bank account, but by the people waiting for you at home. Months later, Daniel established a charitable foundation dedicated to helping single parents facing temporary financial hardship. Families received emergency assistance for rent, medicine, groceries, and childcare before small problems became life-changing disasters. Every application was reviewed with compassion instead of judgment, because Daniel remembered exactly how helpless $9 had once made him feel. One afternoon, while visiting the foundation, Lily asked her father why he never tried to take revenge against the woman who embarrassed him. Daniel smiled gently and explained that revenge might satisfy pride for a moment, but forgiveness could change lives forever. If people learned kindness from his story, that would always be worth more than watching someone else suffer. Years later, the foundation had helped thousands of families remain together during their darkest moments. Parents who once feared eviction found hope. Children who worried about empty refrigerators returned to school smiling. Every success reminded Daniel that losing one job had opened the door to a purpose far greater than any executive position could have offered. Before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you. Please comment below with the words, "Kindness always wins." If you believe every person deserves compassion before judgment, if this story touched your heart, reminded you of someone you love, or inspired you to treat others with more kindness, please support this video by liking, sharing, leaving your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing to Heartfelt Chronicles. Your support helps us continue sharing emotional stories that remind the world that character is worth far more than money. Sometimes the greatest fortune a person will ever possess isn't $86 million in a bank account. It's having the courage to stay kind, even after the world gives you every reason not to.